Welcome to Global Teleclass, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our teleclass this evening, Lose Weight Easier, Here's How, with Rob Sugar. And I was just saying during the warm-up that tonight you're all going to learn how to lose weight easier using a completely different approach. And that's one of the reasons that we're so excited to have Rob Sugar back with us tonight here at Global Teleclass, because Rob has been called North America's premier weight loss coach, and here's why. To begin, he is a certified NLP practitioner, and NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. He'll be telling you a little bit about that and how that works. He's also a psychotherapist and, of course, a master weight loss coach and emotional eating expert. In fact, over the last 20 years, he has helped thousands of people. And his unique approach has been featured on TV, radio, at numerous newspapers and magazines. In fact, a national magazine wrote about Rob and said, quote, "A passion and desire to help people fuels Sugar's powerful instinct with people. Through his gentle nature and what others consider a gift of understanding, Sugar has a recognized ability to diagnose lifelong problems." So be sure to listen to tonight's whole class, by the way, because Rob's going to have some very important information for you at the end of our call tonight. And let me suggest one more time, be sure and grab a pen and paper, because Rob is going to have not only a lot of great information for us tonight, but also tools and techniques that you can start using right away. So tonight, Global Teleclass is very proud to present Rob Sugar and his teleclass, Lose Weight Easier, Here's How. Welcome to Global Teleclass, Rob.
Thank you very much, David. I appreciate that warm introduction.
And now you can go ahead and click on Show My Screen, and we'll be able to see yourself. Yeah, there we go. You looks beautiful.
Thank you very much, David. So I would like to welcome every one of you on the line. I'm very excited to be here. As Dave was mentioning, we're going to be looking at a much easier way to lose weight today. And, excuse me, tonight what we're really going to focus on is a completely different approach to losing weight. And as David mentioned, I'm going to teach you some very, very specific techniques that you can start using right away, okay, to help to change your relationship with food and to naturally reduce your desire to actually lose weight. Now, have you tried to lose weight before? Obviously, we all have. We begin a weight loss journey from point A to point B. And diet after diet, year after year, we go closer and closer until we hit a wall. Okay? So what we're here to do is to actually break through that wall. Without willpower, without discipline, we want to break through the obstacles, any barriers, and these are all in your thoughts and emotions. We're going to be getting to that in a moment. Any resistance, underlying factors here that we're going to touch on, and whatever's really stopping you from being able to lose weight permanently. You know, we can all lose weight, but this is about losing weight permanently. Okay. Now, a little bit about me. I started my life as a pretty overweight child. I struggled. I really know what it's like to diet and go up and down. You know, I've been there myself. I know that dieting doesn't work in the long run. I worked for many, many weight loss clinics growing up and in gyms, and I saw patterns of up and down, including myself. It didn't matter what the program was. So I was searching for a solution that was well beyond dieting. I went back to school and I became a psychotherapist, and for those of you in the United States, it's kind of like a psychologist. And I was taught these incredible techniques through a clinical process that I have to engage in. And I've spent 20 years working with these specific techniques with over 5,000 people individually. I've seen what works and definitely what doesn't work. I have a real passion for this work, and I really look forward to helping you as much as humanly possible tonight. Now, let's focus on you. Okay? How much weight do you want to lose? I'll just take a moment, think about it. Why do you want to lose the weight? What is the worst thing about having this extra weight? Is it your appearance? Is it how you feel about yourself? Your energy? What's the worst part about it? Okay? And you've tried to lose weight, obviously. What's the problem? Why can't you get there and keep it off? And what's the solution? And that is what we're going to look at. What is the solution? And first, to look at the problem, one of them is this conflict that we have between the logical side of us and the emotional side. So the logical side is the part that says, you know, I want to lose weight, I want to look better, I want to feel better, I want my clothes to fit better, my health to improve, my confidence, and I may lack some self-control or willpower at any given moment. So that's the logical side, and we've heard it all before. Then there's this unconscious part that we are definitely not aware of generally in the moment. We can call it our emotion, we can call it our unconscious awareness, which we aren't really even clued into, but it's something underneath the logic. And there's really about 29 different reasons that we've documented in our clinic as to why people eat on a deeper emotional level. So we've got a few of them here. Stress, being agitated or anxious, maybe bored, lonely. The list goes on, you know, frustration. It just goes on and on. It basically talks about something's missing, something's not okay, okay? And food definitely helps us when we feel these emotions, okay? Now, how does it help us? Well, one way is to distract us from it. You know, if you're feeling bored or lonely and you go into the kitchen and you have a nice piece of cake, you're really not focusing any longer on the boredom or loneliness. Unfortunately, only lasts a moment, but that's basically how it is, okay? Now, we also get some very positive benefits from food. It calms us down, it comforts us, we feel great in the moment if it tastes good, it's a reward, you know, instant gratification, something to look forward to, soothe or nurture, and you know, it goes on and on. Enjoyment, entertainment, and so forth. Okay? Now, remember that conflict here between the logical side and the emotional side. Okay? Now, basically, what that part says is, in the moment, emotionally, if you eat a piece of cake or, you know, something that you really enjoy, chocolate, there is some kind of a benefit that you're getting from it. In the moment, you bite into it, it tastes good, it's a reward. So you're gaining some kind of a benefit in the moment. That's what's the key here, in the moment. Now, in that same moment, if you're standing on a scale with a piece of cake and you put the cake down, in that split second, will your weight go down? In that second? No, it won't. Will you look any better? In that split second, when you put down the cake? No. Will you feel any better about your body and your weight and how you look? No. Will your clothes fit any better in that second? No. Will your health improve in that split second? Not really. Your confidence won't go up in any way. And so really what we're looking at here is that when it comes to benefits, there are no benefits in that specific moment to not have the cake. Now, if you've got all of these wonderful benefits on this side, but you have no consequences on this side in the moment, then why wouldn't you? Why would you not eat something that makes you feel good if in that split second it's not going to make a difference? So there is no benefit, and that's a problem. That's a conflict, because your diet mentality is saying don't eat the food. But this logical side now begins to say, well, wait a minute, it's not going to affect any of this stuff. but it'll give me this stuff. So we begin to rationalize. Anybody ever done this and say, you know what, I'm just going to eat this now, and tomorrow I'll start again, or I'll exercise more, or maybe next Monday, or what have you. And when we begin to do that and do it repetitively, it creates a program, like a computer program, a program in our mind that gets repeated. And so every time a situation like that occurs where your mind says, I shouldn't eat this, guess what happens? This program kicks in and says, well, I'll just eat this now and be good tomorrow. One of the most relevant things in changing your thought process is to change this program. And we'll talk a little bit about that more in a moment. Okay? Now, conflict number 2, lack of willpower or self-control. If you had unlimited self-control of food every minute of every day, obviously your eating habits would be better, right? Sure. However, we don't, or at least we think we don't. Let's say you're about to eat that piece of cake, and your fairy godmother appears and says to you, look, just put down this slice of cake just for a moment. And I promise you, you will be down to your ideal weight within 30 seconds of putting the cake on the table. Clearly, most of you would have the control or the willpower to not eat it. How hard would that be if you know that in 30 seconds you'll be down at your ideal weight and you'll stay that way permanently for the rest of your life no matter what you eat tomorrow? So now what's the conflict? Well, the conflict is saying, well, we lack self-control. But now we're saying we have self-control in the moment if the fairy godmother is there. Now, obviously, there is no fairy godmother for most of us. So what happens is that we actually choose. We choose not to use our self-control or willpower. Now, I want to say that again. We believe we lack self-control, but we have it, obviously, if we need it. When the situation is beneficial enough, if someone put $100,000 on the table and said, you have a choice, it's the cake or the $100,000, most of us would go for the $100,000. How hard would that be? So there's our self-control. But in normal life, where there is no $100,000 on the table, we choose not to use that willpower. So again, we have this program in our mind that says, I lack self-control. Now take that program and apply it to cake in front of you. Your mind says, I shouldn't eat this, but your program says, but I don't have control. So what's going to happen? Obviously, you're going to eat it and feel out of control. But guess what? Who put the food in your mouth? So you have control. So which way is it? It's both ways. You have unlimited control, but you choose to use it when you want to. And it's absolutely critical to be aware of that, because otherwise you're basically giving away your control and your willpower by abdicating responsibility and saying, sorry, I don't have it. So conflict number 2 that needs to be addressed is to change that program. Now, we want to start looking at some of the solutions here. And we're talking about changing programs, and we want to get a little bit more specific. So the first solution, unfortunately, is that dieting is not a long-term solution. Now, how is that a solution? Well, it is because if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, thinking that it's a solution, then you're not going to get anywhere. So when you recognize that the whole dieting model, regardless of what it is, whether it's counting calories or carbs or finding a meal plan, there are umpteen different things, and I would assume that most of you can write your own book on diet. Sadly, dieting, structure, regimen, discipline, these things do not work as a permanent solution. If they did, you wouldn't be here tonight. So we're going to go over some techniques tonight which will actually allow us to duplicate the benefits that food gives us. What are these benefits? Well, remember the feeling of being calm and comforted and nurtured and relaxed and instant gratification. All of these are benefits that food gives you. Now, guess what? If you get these benefits in some other way, then your desire for food is going to drop because you are going to be satisfied emotionally. You will naturally reduce your desire to eat too much or the wrong types of foods. Now, I know that might sound unrealistic, but it is not. I have hundreds and hundreds of clients who have experienced this. It's very simple. If you have a way of dealing with your stress or your anxiety or anything like that, other than with food, then what happens to your desire for food to deal with stress? It drops. And the same thing with respect to feeling good, calm, content, anything like that. If there's another way for you to experience that, then guess what? You simply will not have the desire, the craving to turn to food and to overeat and to eat when you know you need to be doing something else. So the next question is, well, how do these techniques work? And more importantly, why do they work? So I want to give you a little analogy. Now, we all have a neurological system in our mind that make us do certain things automatically without even thinking of it. You know, when you walk, you don't really think about left, right. It's automatic because you've done it so many times. You know, the same thing is, let's say you're at an intersection, driving on the right side of the road. You've been to this destination many times. Maybe it's your home or work. And when it comes to that intersection, making a right-hand turn is effortless. Sometimes you might get home and wonder, you know, how did I even get here? You don't even remember because you've done it so many times. Now, why is that occurring? Because every time you do this type of an action, over and over and over and over again, you're building like a highway in your mind, basically. This is called a neural pathway. It's a path in your brain that's been created by repetitious action, which makes it habitual, not requiring any thought. Now, with all due respect, most of you have probably had certain eating habits that have been repeated so many times that it's automatic, and you may find yourself in the midst of it without even knowing you're doing it because it's so automatic. What we need to do is to change the neurological system. Now, if you're going to drive in England, you'd have to do the same thing. You have to train your mind to make a left-hand turn into the left-hand lane, sitting on the other side of the car, which initially will be a bit challenging. But all you have to do is put in a little effort and maybe practice, 5-10 minutes a day. You do that for a few weeks, guess what's going to happen? You have a new neural pathway, a new highway in your brain, which will make this just as easy and simple and effortless as it was to make the right-hand turn. And that's the principle behind these techniques. We tap into how your neurological system currently works. And that's through pure repetition. There is absolutely no magic in this. The techniques are great, but it's the retraining the mind through repetition that makes it a permanent thing, and it makes it something that you cannot fail. Assuming you're neurologically sound, if you keep trying to drive in England, day after day, and you keep practicing and practicing, you can't fail. It might take a little longer, but the bottom line is, as long as you apply a little bit of effort, you will succeed for sure. Now, we've talked about the conflict and changing the program. The one program that we looked at that says there wasn't any benefit to not eating in the moment. Now, again, there isn't. a benefit in not eating in the moment. You are not going to lose any weight in that split second, but it's in your mind that makes the difference. It really does matter if you eat, because it affects how you think, and how you think determines how you act. So if your mind says it doesn't matter, how are you going to act? You're going to eat like it doesn't matter. If your mind says it does matter, you may eat, you may not, but at least your mind knows that it does, and so you take back responsibility, which is absolutely critical. It's all about thinking, how you're thinking, not what you're eating. We'll get to that a bit in a moment too. Now, the other thing we want to do is we want to change that program we were talking about, where lack of control or willpower, with all due respect, is a falsehood. It's not true. You know, people believed the world was flat. It wasn't true. You may believe you lack control or willpower. It isn't true. If the circumstances were the right, you would be able to forego eating. So we need to reinforce that you do have self-control and that you're the one in charge. You choose to use it or not. So we're reclaiming your power, which is really important, because otherwise you are going to feel powerless. Okay? So the next thing we want to look at is your belief system about the possibility of success. Now, I define success as losing weight and keeping it off. So when I talk about success from here on in, success means that you lose the weight and keep it off. You know, most of us have lost weight. It isn't so hard to do, but this is the good part right here. It's the keeping it off part. That is what I believe success is all about. Okay? Now, let's say with success, 0 means it's not going to happen in your mind. And 10 means it will happen for sure, 100%. So on a scale of 0 to 10, how much do you believe you will lose weight and keep it off, that you will absolutely do it? Take a moment. Scale is 0 to 10. It doesn't have to be exact. Now, let's take an average. So let's say for you, your belief says the possibility of success is 50-50. 50% says yes, it will happen for sure, and 50% says no, I don't think it's going to happen. Now, you're entitled to this belief, but this belief that it is not 100% for sure that you will lose the weight, does that affect the result in any way? What do you think? It absolutely does. Because it creates a sabotaging unconscious part of you that says, why bother? If you're going for that cake and your mind kicks in again and says, I probably shouldn't be doing this, if there's an underlying current that says, you know what, I don't think I'm going to be able to lose the weight and keep it off. So why bother not eating this cake now? I'm going to enjoy it. In the long run, it's not going to make a difference. So that possibility, if we go back to this question, does your belief about the possibility for success, we're not saying that it's going to happen tomorrow. We're saying, is it possible? And if you believe in the smallest way that it doesn't, you are closing the door to that possibility, and I guarantee you your actions will follow suit. For example, game of ping pong. First player to reach 21 wins. Let's say you are playing and you have 5 points and you're playing against someone who has 20 points. And in that next shot, you can lose. Your brain comes in and says, you know, it's not very possible that I'm going to win. I've lost many, many points. that way of thinking is going to have an impact on your action and how you take that next shot. Conversely, if you have a thought that says, you know, it's totally possible for me to win. I've got to play really good and I can do it, but I have to focus and play my top game. You are much more likely to act in a way, to play in a way that will bring you to success. There's no guarantee, but I can guarantee that you will play better than if you think you're not going to make it. So can't emphasize more how important it is for you to have a very strong belief system about possibility. But let's say right now you don't. You know, what are you going to do? Well, what we have to do is we have to challenge that belief system. Challenge this belief system by questioning it and saying, well, why? Why do I think it's only 50-50? Well, for most of us, it's past history. You know, I failed in the past. This diet didn't work. I lost the weight. I gained it back. What have you, what have you. Now, again, if we use that analogy with the ping pong, you could have lost 20 points. That doesn't mean in this second that you can't continue to play well. So what you need to do is to change your belief system about the possibility of success. And again, you need to question it with a new thought. Is it possible to succeed regardless of the past? Is it possible to win the game regardless of how many points you've lost? Well, the good news is anything is possible if you believe it is. So once again, it's all about your thinking and your belief system. This is 90% of what produces success, which I have seen over the last 20 years, including myself. It's thinking. It's how we think. So I know that many of you heard this in aspects of your life. So in the spirit of that, the next technique we want to look at is your self-image. Okay? Now, when I speak about that, I talk about how you see yourself, how you see your body and your weight. What is your judgment? What is your opinion? Is it good or bad? Now, I want to look at a specific formula to help us learn about this more. So the formula says that our thinking, whatever we think, determines how we feel. How we feel determines our behavior, our action, and of course the actions that we take produce some kind of a result. So let's take an example. Donald Trump. Many of us have heard of this person. This person has gone bankrupt more times than many of us have even thought about the idea. However, each time he gains back to his former self, he's always back to that incredibly high level of wealth. And research has shown that the way he thinks of himself is something in the neighborhood of believing that I am wealthy. He sees himself as a wealthy person. He feels powerful, competent. He's made a lot of money. He's been down. He's made it again. He knows he can do it. So that is what has an impact on his action. His hotels, TV shows, and whatever other things that he does to generate income. And the results of that is that he does generate quite a bit of income. Now, look at this. All of that income purely reinforces how he sees himself, which then produces this ongoing cycle, making the money, believing he can, and so forth. But it all starts here at the thinking level. Most of us think it's the action level that we have to change. We do. But if a person is worth, in their mind, $50,000 a year, they are not going to be building hotels. It just doesn't seem real to them. And if Donald Trump goes bankrupt again, I'm pretty confident he's not going to look for a job for $50,000. That's just not who he is. So what I'm saying is that our thoughts are aligned to our actions. And so the right thoughts produce the right actions, which is what produces the result. Okay? Now, how does this pertain to losing weight? Well, what are your thoughts about your body and your weight? Are they positive or negative? So take a moment. What do you actually think of your body? You have to describe it to somebody. Now let's use a typical example. I am fat, or I am overweight. I'm so frustrated. I overeat and I eat the wrong types of foods, and the result is that I have this extra weight. So according to our formula, the extra weight then simply reinforces how we see ourselves, and this pattern just continues and continues. Every diet out there is telling you to change your action. But once again, it's your thinking process that determines your action. With all due respect, if you think of yourself as a fat, overweight person, you are much more likely to eat like a fat, overweight person, because that's what makes sense to you on an unconscious level. You're about to eat an extra slice of cake, your brain kicks in and says, I shouldn't do this. But on some unconscious level, you say to yourself, but I'm overweight. And so this is how an overweight person acts. And so this makes sense to me. And all the willpower in the world can't fight that deep unconscious part of you. Especially when you've done this over and over and over again, perhaps year after year after year after year. It is a very powerful force, like a domino effect. The first domino is your thought, and then the rest flies. By the time you're here at your results, you cannot change the flow. No matter how hard you try, it's very, very hard to reverse the flow, right? So if we want to use another example of this, the sailboat here, the bottom of the sailboat, these are called rudders. You can see these. These are what really and truly direct the boat. Now, if you are thinking of yourself, whether it's consciously or more so unconsciously, that you're a fat person or overweight, again, with all due respect, you are always going to be headed in that direction. You will consistently be behaving that way because that's how you are aligned to behave. You may have some momentary or weekly or maybe for a month or a year success in going in a different direction and losing weight. But until you change your thought process, you will tend to regain the weight. Because if you're consistently telling yourself, I have to lose weight, I have to lose weight, I have to lose weight, guess what? That doesn't stop. Even when you've lost the weight, unconsciously your brain says, I have to lose weight, I have to lose weight. So you're going to have to regain weight to lose it. Now, this is all on a very deep, subtle level, which makes it really hard to deal with. And where diets don't enter the picture, diets just say, you know, go this way, change your actions, and you are going to need a fair amount of discipline and willpower. But who can afford that every minute of day? Who has the power to focus on what they should eat and what they shouldn't eat every second of every day? Very hard to do. So then we just come back to our so-called default position, back to I'm fat. And it's very, very difficult to deal with. But it is truly, absolutely critical to change your thinking. And this applies to many other areas of your life. So the techniques that we look at in changing our thought process will also help change anything else in our life that we find out, you know, really and truly, hey, the way I'm thinking, I mean, a lot of people think about making more money, but they spend a lot of time worrying about not having enough. So that's the direction they're in, not having enough, not having enough. And many of you have heard this. It's nothing new. But instead of talking about it, there is a very specific step-by-step process that you can engage in to actually change your thinking. And then through practice, repetition, again, you're like driving on the right side, left side of the road, keep practicing a new way of thinking, you will have a new way of thinking, and then your actions will pretty well follow suit. Now let's look at some more thinking. We want to look at your relationship to food. Now what do I mean by that? Well, each of us has a relationship, things that we say to food, to ourselves, things that we say to ourselves about food, things that we do, and so forth. So here are some of them. I should lose weight. How many of you said that before? I really should watch what I'm eating. I should start tomorrow or next week. I need to follow a plan. I can't eat this. I can't eat that. You may be eating secretly. You may be feeling guilty. And there's a host of other things that keeps us in what we call the diet mentality. Now, diet mentality is about depriving, restricting, using willpower and discipline. And I guarantee you, as if you've seen it yourself, that that purely leads to the opposite, to rebelling, to sabotaging, to binging, to having that all or nothing way of thinking. And it's very challenging to change that unless we change our diet mentality into a more neutral mentality. You know, we're going to talk about that in a second. If you look at the average person who does not have a weight issue, guess what? They're not saying these things. They're not saying I shouldn't eat this and I shouldn't do that. And, you know, they may be careful here and there, but generally they're eating in a more neutral way, in a diet-free way. And that's why they are that way to many extent. Now, so how do we do that? Well, let me give you an analogy here. Let's say that you happen to like baked goods. Okay, anybody care to have a piece of cake or anything that is in front of you right here? I'm sure many of you. Now, let's assume when you were growing up, your family owned the most incredible bakery in the entire city, and you lived above it. You could smell the baked stuff every day. And you'd go in there with your friends, and everything's great, and you'd enjoy it as often as you wanted. And all of a sudden, one day, your family sits you down and says, you are banned from the bakery. You are not allowed to go in there anymore. And we are hiring a private detective to follow you around to make sure that you don't have it anywhere else. What do you think will happen for your desire for the cake? It obviously goes up. And that's what happens to the dieter. When you are restricted or deprived of certain foods, you want them more. You know, how many of you eat too much salad? Very few, because you're not restricted. You can eat as much as you want of it, so it's no big deal. It's when you're deprived that you want it that much more. Now, once again, depriving and restricting leads to binging or the all-or-nothing way of thinking about it, but you're stuck because dieting is your solution. However, it's the problem, really. Now, going back to that scenario, if your family's away and you are walking down the street, you see the bakery, the baker has been baking all day, and for some odd reason, a huge order that he's about to deliver gets canceled, and he's stuck with it, and he's about to throw it into the garbage. And he sees you walking by, and he says, you know what, I know you love it, I know you're banned, it's going in the garbage, I'm going to take a walk around the block. If when I come back, it's still here, fine, but if you've taken it, nobody will know the difference, nobody will find out, but it's a one-shot deal. So take what you can, but that's it. It's a one-time opportunity. What do you think will happen? Do you think you'll have the same amount as if you ordinarily were allowed to eat as much as you want? Probably not. Why? Because this is a one-shot deal. And again, this is how the average dieter thinks. you're doing well during the day, and then you have something at night that may not be great, and your mind says, well, I've blown it. I might as well eat the whole thing because tomorrow I'm starting fresh, or something like that. That is a never-ending process that you think it will end, but it won't end. The only way it will end is if you change your relationship with food. Now, going back to the scenario, if your family realizes sometimes later that, hey, we've made a mistake here, you're allowed back in to the bakery. You can eat as much as you want, whenever you want. Now, what do you think will happen to your desire then? Assuming after a few days or weeks you've indulged and have it all because you've been deprived, what do you think will happen? Well, most of you, if not all, won't eat the same amount in each sitting if you can go back in 5 minutes. What's the point? Why bother overeating when you know you can eat more in 5 minutes? And so, again, we want to model the average person who doesn't have a weight issue. They do not restrict. So the desire to overeat will naturally decrease without dieting, with discipline, without self-control, just very naturally. And you're going to eliminate this up and down, never-ending yo-yo cycling. The diet model doesn't work as a permanent solution. And if you continue to do it, you're going to continue to get where you are. So again, excuse me, we want to change the diet mentality into a neutral, so-called normal way of eating, okay? Diet-free. Now, it's a very simple process, but it's difficult to do it on your own because you're stuck in a mindset. Okay? So you have to go from a dieting set to a non-dieting set, and in order to do that on a day-to-day basis, you need to look at all these factors that you're doing, what you're saying to yourself, what you're doing. It needs to be from a diet position to a non-diet. If you're telling yourself, I shouldn't be eating this, you're going to want it more. You need to change that to maybe something like, well, maybe I'll eat a little bit less or not so often. Now, that may not be a big deal, but believe me, to your mind, it is. When you tell yourself, I can eat anything I want, in moderation perhaps, it's a lot different than saying, I can't eat this. So again, we want to change the diet way of thinking into a non-diet way of thinking. We want to model the thinking of a person who is not a dieter. And the benefits of that are changing your relationship with food, naturally reducing your desire to overeat, eating and drinking without any worry about what I should eat and how many calories and all of that, and a diet-free way of living. Now, I'm going to ask you to just hold on for a split second, and I'm going to have one of my clients just discuss their experience here about that. Just bear with me 1 second.
So the benefit of changing my diet mentality was critical to the success that I have achieved so far, in that it removed all the guilt. It allowed me to do what I wanted to do, and I didn't have to have that conversation with myself every single day.
Oh, I'm sorry, I guess she got cut off there. So anyways, going back to where we were here, what we want to do is really produce a shift, a change in your thinking process. And if you're truly ready for a change, the sky's the limit. So the next thing we want to look at is something called increasing your awareness. Now, your awareness about food and eating is on two levels. One is physical hunger, okay? Now, I know myself, and many years ago, I would be at a movie and I'd be eating popcorn, and minutes later, I'd see an empty bag. Well, I didn't even know how that happened. We call it mindless eating. We're not even hungry, but we eat anyway. So one thing that's very helpful, very simple, is to check in to see, am I truly hungry? Before you eat something or in the middle of it, you've been eating quite a bit, just ask yourself, am I truly hungry? You'll get a yes, you'll get a no. If you get a no, you may still eat. But sometimes when you get the no, you might recognize, gee, you know what? What's the point of it? I'm not even really hungry. You're eating a sandwich. You're down to your last few bites. You're at the crust. You check in. I'm not hungry. What am I missing if I don't eat the rest? Nothing. Now, so you're cutting back maybe 10, 20%, but it requires no willpower or no effort. And so you can sustain that as a permanent solution and not have to use the willpower. Now, this might cut back your eating by 10 or 20%. But again, it requires no real effort because you train your mind and it becomes like a new habit, like driving in England, and it will be there for you all the time. Now, the next thing you want to do is to check out how you're feeling emotionally in the moment. If you're not hungry, why do you want to eat? What's really going on, other than the taste, of course? We talked about a few things before, and there's many, many reasons. There's 29 different reasons. But when you're aware of these, maybe you are anxious. If you can tune into yourself and recognize, hey, I'm really anxious here. I'm not hungry. Do I really need this? You're not on a diet, so you may say, no, I don't, but I'm going to have it anyway. But when you have the strength and control and power to make your own decision and not follow a diet, and you check into recognizing how you're feeling, very often than not, that will, in fact, short-circuit this sort of automatic way of being, okay? So you want to know what is the benefit of eating other than the taste. And that, again, will short-circuit a lot of your eating without willpower, without discipline. Now, by knowing what you really need in that moment with the questions that you ask, you can now begin to duplicate the positive feelings that food gives you. Remember we were talking about that? If you can feel relaxed or comfort or calm or what have you, then guess what? Your desire for food is going to drop naturally. Okay? So we eat to feel good. We eat to be calmer. We eat to be satisfied. If you can consistently feel calm or content or at peace and free of negative feelings consistently, you probably wouldn't need food to feel better in those specific circumstances, right? So there's a technique, one of the most powerful and simple techniques, which is called mind clearing. Now, the goal of the mind clearing is to produce that consistent, calm, content, peaceful feeling. Now, most of us have had moments where we're feeling that way. We're very calm, we're content, and then there are other moments that we're definitely not, okay? So, why can't we consistently feel this calmness, this content feeling? Well, we have circumstances in our life. Things happen in our relationships, in work, with family. These things get in the way of us being this calm and content way. So what we're going to do is show you how to release that by using an analogy here whereby these emotions are represented by this yellow circle, the sun. So this is the sun, and it's the same thing as the calmness and the contentment and the peace. Now, using the same analogy, from the time the sun rises to the time it sets, there's certain days where it's extremely sunny and other days where it's not. Now, why can't it be sunny consistently? Why not? Well, there are clouds in the sky. The clouds are in the sky preventing the sun from actually shining. Now, if you're walking down the street, though, and it's raining or snowing, the sun is still shining, right? A very interesting phenomenon to think about. The sun is always shining no matter what the weather is really like. Now, in the same way, and this is one of the most profound statements you're going to hear from me, the only thing that's stopping you or anybody, with all due respect, from being calm and content or at peace at any given moment are your thoughts and your feelings about what's happening in your life. That's what's responsible for the lack of calmness and contentment. We can feel it at any moment. It's possible, but it's these thoughts and feelings, the negative thoughts and negative feelings that occupy our mind. Now, let's say, hypothetically, that we had a giant wind machine that can blow these clouds away. Consistently, it would then be sunny. Now, what if there was a way to consistently release these thoughts and feelings? What are we then left with? We are left with calm, content, and at peace. We have to get rid of these, and we're left with this. It's as simple as that. The question is, how are we going to do that? Well, there is a process in your mind. It's called the release mechanism. It's the ability to take your focus off of one thing and put it onto something else. And it's already in there. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're sitting with somebody and they're watching a TV show, a hockey game, and you're really not into it. You're bored out of your mind, okay? But you're focused on that, on what you're seeing, and therefore you're feeling the way you are. If you change the channel within a split second onto something else, you may really be feeling good. So this release mechanism is the ability to automatically take your focus off of the hockey game and put it onto American Idol. So you're releasing your focus. It's very, very automatic. You don't even know you're doing it. Like using a channel converter. The second you click it, your mind is elsewhere. Now, here's the power of this mind clearing. This release mechanism is already in you. What I do is I teach people a technique called mind clearing, which attaches that release mechanism to your breathing. And so every time you take a breath, you will actually be activating that mechanism. Each time you breathe, you will activate the release mechanism and release the thought or feeling that triggers your cravings in that moment. Now, the beauty of this is that you take a breath in each moment. So you will be consistently releasing any messages of dissatisfaction, of boredom, of stress or anxiousness or anything that's going to prompt you to eat. And it's going to be so simple and leave you with such a beautiful experience that you'll be able to carry forward in your life, not just around eating. So you're left with peace and contentment because we are consistently releasing these thoughts and feelings. So I'd like to summarize here with some of the things we've gone over. Number one, we want to change the program that says it doesn't matter if I eat in this moment. We want to change the program that says I lack control and turn it into I have unlimited control and I choose to use it, and I do. We want to strengthen our belief about the possibility of succeeding. It's all in your mind. You definitely want to change how you see yourself. And you want to learn how to let go of your diet mentality and get rid of that frustration of this on again, off again, dieting, overweight. It's just crazy. And the mind clearing, which helps to actually release the thoughts or feeling that triggers the cravings or anything that really stands in the way of you being at peace. Okay? Now, I just want to take another moment, if you would just please indulge me here. I just want you to hear from one of my clients again. Bear with me for 1 second here. Well, I'm having a little bit of trouble with these controls, but I think I just got it maybe. I'm terribly sorry. I will be one other minute. If not, we'll just have to carry on. Wow, this is really odd. Not very mechanically inclined if we haven't already figured that out. Okay, if this doesn't work right at this point, we are going to abandon that. All right, don't know how to get there, so we're going to have to just pass on that. Okay, I apologize for taking some time away from this. The last thing we want to look at is any value that I'm really hoping that you guys got today. And for those of you who want to take the next step, what we want to do is we want to look at the underlying unconscious reasons that you eat. As I mentioned, there's 29 different reasons. It's critical to find out what yours are. Once we find those out, we can match the techniques and teach them to you that works for your particular unconscious trigger. And then there's a training and coaching process where you will then master the technique, and then you will change your relationship with food and naturally reduce your desire to eat. Okay? Now, there is a one-session process to do that, which is called awareness mapping. It is one session. It is 90 minutes, done in the daytime or the evening. It's done by appointment with me personally. And during the session, we will, as I mentioned, uncover the underlying reasons you eat. We will give you an overview of the techniques that will work for you, and you will recognize how to change your relationship with food and how to naturally reduce your desire to overeat. That will happen in that one session, about 90 minutes to 2 hours. And we do offer this during the week, Monday to Friday, evenings and daytime. We also want to look at the power of your mind and offer you the clinically proven techniques to lose weight easier and to keep it off without actually having to diet. We will also show you a very simple technique to stop you from eating too much or the wrong types of food. And most importantly, to break through whatever is stopping you from losing weight and to end the frustration of dieting and to be overweight. Now, you may wonder what determines the success of this session. 3 things. Are you truly ready? And only you'll know that. Do you deserve it? And are you willing to take the action? Are you willing to take the next step? If so, you have what it takes to succeed. Now, the regular cost for this session is $295. That comes with a personal assessment, an awareness mapping session, tools and techniques, and a coaching kit. However, today we have a special on, which is an exchange program. The exchange program will give you the exact same content of what I just described. However, what we're asking in exchange is 15 minutes of your time at the end of our session to give us your opinion about the session. We'll give you a questionnaire, and we want the permission for you to allow us to use those answers in a book that we're producing. Now, you don't have to put your name to it. You're just giving your opinion. And so it's $95 today. You can pay by credit card, PayPal, or debit card in the U.S. And you can register right now at 1-866-791-7546 or at www.howwmv.com. www.coachrobsugar.com. And we are here right now to take your registration. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank Dave Shelton for his wonderful support and the Global Teleclass people. And once again, for those of you who are on the phone, to register now, you can do so at 1-866-791-7546 or at www.coachrobsugar.com. There's no H in sugar. It's what you put in your coffee. So thank you very much, and have a great night.